The text came through while I was reviewing documentation at the National Archives in Washington, D.C. My phone buzzed against the mahogany table, and I glanced down to see my brother Derek's name on the screen. Cleaned out your storage room. Sold those ugly paintings you've been hoarding. Made $8,000. You're welcome. About time someone in this family knew how to make real money. My hand stilled over my coffee cup. The paintings. My chest tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. The librarian across from me didn't notice anything amiss as I calmly set down my phone and returned to the 18th century maritime documents I'd been cataloging. Another text arrived 30 seconds later. Dealer said they were amateur work but paid cash anyway. Splitting it with mom and dad since they let me use your room for storage. Fair is fair, right? Face with tears of joy. I typed back a single word, understood. Then I made a phone call. The paintings Derek had just sold weren't mine to sell. They weren't his to touch. They weren't even legally available for private ownership. Each one was a recovered cultural artifact currently under federal protection, temporarily housed in my secure storage facility while undergoing authentication and provenance research. I was the lead art historian for the FBI's Art Crime Team's Cultural Heritage Division, specializing in Revolutionary War-era artwork. Those 7 paintings represented 18 months of international investigation, cooperation with Interpol and careful negotiation with private collectors. Combined insurance value, $1.2 million. Legal status, protected government assets. My brother had just committed a federal crime. I finished my work at the archives, submitted my research notes, and caught the 4 p.m. train back to Philadelphia. My phone buzzed continuously during the journey. More texts from Derek, then from my mother, then from my father. Derek, use some of the money to book that Vegas trip I've been planning. Thanks, sis. Slot machine. Mom, Derek told us about the paintings. So glad he could help you declutter. You always were a pack rat, sweetie. Dad, your brother's finally showing some initiative. Maybe you could learn something from him about turning a profit. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened my secure work phone and sent a carefully worded email to my supervisor, Special Agent Catherine Morrison, along with the Assistant U.S. Attorney assigned to our division. I attached photographs I'd taken of the paintings in storage 3 weeks earlier, provenance documentation and the text messages from Derek. Catherine called me within 10 minutes. Emma, please tell me your brother didn't actually sell the Peel collection. All 7 pieces, I said quietly. He texted me about it 2 hours ago. There was a long silence on the line. Then, the authenticated Charles Wilson Peel portraits we recovered from that estate fraud case in Geneva? The ones scheduled for Smithsonian transfer next month. Yes. Jesus Christ. Catherine's voice shifted into professional mode. Where are you now? On the train. I'll be home in 40 minutes. Don't go to your apartment. Come straight to the field office. We need to move on this immediately. Do you know who he sold them to? He mentioned a dealer. No name yet. We'll trace it. Emma, I'm sorry, but you know what this means. I know, I said. My voice remained steady. Federal theft of government property. Art fraud. Possibly interstate transportation of stolen goods depending on where the buyer is located. Your brother's looking at serious time. I know, I repeated. My family had never understood my work. To them, I was Emma the eternal student, Emma who spent too much time with dusty old paintings, Emma who'd never had a real job, despite my PhD in art history and my position with the FBI. Derek was the successful one. He'd opened 3 cell phone repair shops in the Philadelphia suburbs, drove a BMW he couldn't quite afford, and never missed an opportunity to remind everyone that he made actual money, while I played with old pictures. My mother had stopped asking about my work years ago. It's too complicated, sweetie, she'd say whenever I tried to explain a case. My father would change the subject to Derek's latest business expansion or my younger sister's marketing career. When I'd asked Derek to avoid my storage room at the apartment, the climate-controlled space where I occasionally kept work materials that didn't require vault-level security, he'd laughed. What, afraid I'll steal your precious doodles? Apparently yes. The FBI field office in Philadelphia was bustling with activity when I arrived. Catherine met me in the lobby, her expression grim. She was a striking woman in her 50s, with steel-gray hair and the kind of presence that made people instinctively straighten their posture. Conference room 3, she said. Art crime team is assembling. Brice Perkins is already here. The next 2 hours were a blur of statements, documentation and strategic planning. The assistant U.S. attorney, James Perkins, was a sharp-eyed man in his 40s who'd prosecuted several high-profile art theft cases. "The paintings were in your apartment?" he asked, reviewing my written statement. "In a secure storage room. Climate-controlled, locked, with documented chain of custody. My brother had a key to the apartment for emergencies but explicit instructions never to enter that room." "Do you have those instructions in writing?" "Text messages. Emails. I'll provide everything." Perkins nodded. "The moment he sold federal property, he committed a felony. If he transported the paintings across state lines or the buyer did, we can add more charges. The dollar value puts this in serious territory. We're talking potential prison time of 5 to 10 years. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just the cold weight of inevitability. "We need to locate the paintings," Catherine said. "Emma, look at your brother's texts again. Anything that might identify the buyer." I scrolled through Derek's messages. He said dealer. He used the term cash. That suggests a gallery or a private dealer who handles estate sales. In Philadelphia? Most likely. Derek wouldn't drive far for this. He thinks he's being clever, but he's lazy. One of the junior agents, Marcus Chin, spoke up from his laptop. "I'm running searches on recent cash art transactions in the Philadelphia area. Cross-referencing with dealers known to handle American colonial artwork." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Got a hit. Rothman Gallery in Rittenhouse Square posted new acquisitions on their Instagram 2 hours ago. Quote, exciting new collection of 18th century portraits. Colonial American art enthusiasts, don't miss this." Catherine leaned over his shoulder. "Pull up the images." My paintings filled the screen. All 7 of them, displayed in Rothman Gallery's showroom, price tags clearly visible. They were being sold as attributed to Charles Wilson Peale. A careful hedge that wouldn't survive expert authentication, but enough to justify the gallery's listed prices ranging from $45,000 to $200,000 each. "That's them," I confirmed. "The provenance documentation was in my files. Derek must have taken that too, or at least enough information to make the sale credible." Perkins pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Judge Martinez for a warrant. We'll need to seize the paintings immediately and freeze the gallery's assets related to this transaction." "What about my brother?" I asked quietly. Catherine's expression softened slightly. "Emma, you know we have to arrest him. He committed federal theft. We have documented evidence, including his own text messages confessing to the crime." "I know. Are you going to be okay with this?" I met her eyes. "He stole $1.2 million in federal assets. He could have derailed an international investigation. He committed a serious crime because he thought I was too stupid to have anything valuable." I paused. "Yes, I'm okay with this." The warrant came through at 8:47 p.m. By 9:15, a team of FBI agents and Philadelphia police officers had surrounded Rothman Gallery. I watched from an unmarked vehicle as they entered the building, presented the warrant to the shocked owner, and began the process of documenting and seizing the paintings. The gallery owner, a silver-haired man named Stuart Rothman, cooperated fully once he understood the situation. According to his statement, which I read later, Derek had approached him that afternoon with the paintings, a fake provenance letter I'd apparently written authenticating them as family heirlooms, and a forged bill of sale. "He seemed legitimate," Rothman told the agents. "He had documentation. He knew the artist's name. He said his sister was an art historian who'd authenticated them before she passed away. I'd passed away apparently. That was Derek's story. I was dead and he was liquidating my estate. The audacity would have been impressive if it weren't so infuriating." By 10:30 p.m., all 7 paintings were secured and en route to the FBI's evidence facility. Rothman was cooperating with the investigation. He'd been defrauded too, after all, and was desperate to avoid being charged as an accomplice. He provided copies of all documentation Derek had given him, including my forged signature on multiple documents. "That's document forgery," Perkins noted. "Add it to the list." Catherine turned to me. "We're moving on your brother tonight. Do you want to be there?" I considered. No. But I want to be available when he inevitably calls me asking for help. "He's going to blame you." "I know." The arrest team left the field office at 11 p.m. I went home to my apartment, the one Derek had invaded, the one where he'd stolen federal property worth more than $1 million, and waited. The call came at 11:47 p.m. Emma. Derek's voice was panicked, shrill. Emma, the FBI is here. They're saying I stole paintings. They're arresting me. You need to tell them this is a mistake. I sat on my couch, looking at the empty storage room where 7 irreplaceable artifacts had been carefully preserved until my brother decided they were junk. Derek, I said calmly. Those paintings were federal property. Protected government assets under FBI custody. I'm the lead art historian for the FBI art crime team. Those pieces were part of an ongoing international investigation. Silence. Then, what? You stole $1.2 million in government property. You forged federal documents. You committed art fraud. You're being charged with multiple felonies. You're FBI? His voice cracked. Since when? 7 years, Derek. I've been with the art crime team for 7 years. But you never said, Mom and Dad said you worked with paintings. I do work with paintings. I investigate stolen cultural artifacts and build federal cases against art criminals. I paused. People like you. Emma, you have to fix this. Tell them it was a mistake. I didn't know. You received explicit instructions never to enter that storage room. I thought you were just being dramatic. I didn't think you had anything valuable. Why would you sell something if you didn't think it was valuable, Derek? Another silence. Then I heard my mother's voice in the background. Let me talk to her. The phone changed hands. My mother's voice came through, trembling with anger. Emma Louise Harrison, you tell these people to leave your brother alone right now. Mom, Derek committed federal theft. He sold some old paintings. You're overreacting. Those paintings are worth $1.2 million. They're protected government assets. He forged federal documents and committed art fraud. So what? He's your brother. Family protects family. Family also respects family, I said quietly. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't commit federal crimes. You're going to let them arrest him over some stupid paintings? Yes. My mother made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a shriek. I didn't raise you to be like this. You raised me to value honesty, respect, and the law. Derek broke all three. The phone went dead. 30 seconds later my father called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Emma, your mother is hysterical. Derek is being arrested. I don't understand what's happening, but you need to fix this. He's your brother. Whatever he did, we can pay it back. Just drop the charges. I deleted the voicemail without responding. The arrest made the local news by morning. Philadelphia man arrested for theft of federal art assets, read the headline on NBC 10. The story was brief but damning. Derek Harrison, 34, had been charged with theft of government property, art fraud, forgery of federal documents, and interstate transportation of stolen goods. The paintings, described as rare 18th-century portraits valued at over $1 million, had been recovered. My phone exploded with messages. My younger sister Jessica. Emma, what the hell? Derek is in jail. Extended family members. Is this true? What's going on? Old college friends. Saw your brother's arrest. Are you okay? I responded to none of them. Instead, I went to work. The FBI field office was subdued when I arrived. My colleagues knew the situation. The art crime team was small, tight-knit, and the news had spread quickly. Catherine met me at my desk. How are you holding up? Fine, I said. What's the status on the paintings? Secured in evidence. Perkins is building the case. Your brother lawyered up. Public defender named Rodriguez. Good attorney, actually. He'll advise Derek to take a plea. What's the offer? Too early to say. But given the value, the federal nature of the crime, and the forgery charges. Catherine trailed off. He's looking at significant prison time. Maybe 5 years with a plea, 10 if he goes to trial and loses. I nodded. The paintings. Provenance confirmed. Authentication completed. They'll be transferred to the Smithsonian on schedule. You saved an international investigation, Emma. If those paintings had disappeared into private collections, we might never have recovered them. Derek didn't know that. No. He thought he was stealing worthless junk from his loser sister. The accuracy of that statement made something twist in my chest, but I pushed it aside. What do you need from me? Statement refinement. Court testimony preparation. The usual. Catherine paused. Your family's going to make this difficult. I know. Difficult was an understatement. Over the next 3 days I received 147 text messages, 63 phone calls, and 12 emails from various family members. My mother's messages progressed from angry to pleading to venomous. My father's were shorter but equally hostile. Jessica tried the reasonable approach, suggesting family therapy and mediation. None of them seemed to grasp the fundamental reality. Derek had committed a serious federal crime, and I had no power to make it disappear. On day 4, my mother showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find her standing in the hallway, dressed in black like she was attending a funeral. Her eyes were red and swollen. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, looking around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. Her gaze landed on the storage room door. That's where they were? She asked quietly. Yes. Derek said they looked like amateur paintings. Old portraits that someone's grandmother might have done. They're authenticated Charles Wilson Peale portraits from 1780. Part of a collection that was stolen from a Swiss museum in 1987 and trafficked through private collectors for decades. The FBI recovered them 18 months ago. I was leading the provenance research. My mother sat down heavily on my couch. You work for the FBI? Yes. For 7 years. Yes. Why didn't you tell us? I sat across from her. I did tell you, Mom. Multiple times. You said my job was too complicated to understand. Dad changed the subject. Derek made jokes about me playing with pretty pictures. She flinched. We didn't realize. You didn't want to realize. It was easier to think I was unemployed or working some meaningless museum job than to actually listen when I explained what I do. So you let us think you were a failure? The question hit harder than I expected. I let you think whatever you wanted to think. I couldn't force you to pay attention. My mother's hands twisted in her lap. Derek's bail is $500,000. We can't afford that. I know. Can you help? I looked at her steadily. No. Emma, please. He's your brother. He stole federal property worth $1.2 million. He forged documents. He committed art fraud. If I helped him post bail, I could be charged with obstruction of justice. But you're FBI. You have connections. Which is exactly why I can't interfere. Mom, Derek committed a serious crime. There are consequences. She stood abruptly. He made a mistake. He made multiple conscious choices, all of them illegal. You're going to let your own brother go to prison. I stood too. I'm going to let the justice system work the way it's designed to work. Derek isn't going to prison because of me. He's going to prison because he committed federal crimes. My mother's face crumpled. I don't even know you anymore. You never did, I said quietly. She left without another word. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks later. I attended as a witness, sitting in the federal courthouse and watching my brother shuffle in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He'd lost weight. His usual cockiness had evaporated, replaced by a hollow-eyed fear that might have moved me if I didn't know exactly what he'd done. His public defender, Marcus Rodriguez, was indeed good. He made a compelling argument for bail reduction, citing Derek's family ties and lack of prior criminal history. The judge was unmoved. Mr. Harrison sold federal property worth over $1 million, Judge Martinez said, her voice crisp. He forged federal documents. He demonstrated sophisticated planning and deliberate criminal intent. Bail is denied. My mother sobbed in the gallery. My father sat stone-faced. Jessica stared at me like I was a stranger. After the hearing, A.C. Perkins approached me in the hallway. They'll offer a plea soon. Rodriguez knows he can't win at trial. The evidence is overwhelming. What will he get? My recommendation will be 5 years federal prison, 3 years supervised release, full restitution to the government for investigation costs, and a permanent ban from art dealing or sales. And if he refuses the plea? 10 to 15 years if convicted at trial. The judge won't be lenient with document forgery and art fraud on top of the theft charges. I nodded. Thank you. Perkins hesitated. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Those paintings are irreplaceable pieces of American cultural heritage. If they'd been lost. I know. Your family doesn't see it that way. No, I agreed. They don't. The plea offer came 3 days later. Derek's attorney called my supervisor to inform the FBI that his client would be accepting the government's terms. 5 years in federal prison, 3 years supervised release, $87,000 in restitution for investigation and recovery costs, and a lifetime ban from art-related commerce. Catherine called me into her office to deliver the news. "It's done," she said. "Sentencing is scheduled for next month, but the plea agreement is signed. Your brother's going away." I sat down slowly. 5 years. It's better than 15. Rodriguez did right by him. She paused. "How do you feel?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I keep thinking about when we were kids. Derek was always the charming one, the one who could talk his way out of anything. He's probably terrified right now." "He should be. Federal prison isn't a joke." "I know." I looked up at Catherine. "Did I do the right thing?" "Emma, you reported a federal crime. You protected government assets worth over $1 million. You maintained the integrity of an international investigation. Yes, you did the right thing. It doesn't feel right. Because he's your brother. But Emma, if you'd covered for him, you'd have been complicit. You'd have destroyed your career and probably faced charges yourself. And those paintings, those irreplaceable pieces of history, might have been lost forever." He was right. Intellectually, I knew she was right. But emotionally, the weight of what I'd set in motion was crushing. The 7 Peale portraits were transferred to the Smithsonian Institution 3 weeks later. I attended the ceremony as part of the FBI art crime team. The museum's director of American art gave a speech about cultural preservation and the importance of law enforcement cooperation in recovering stolen artifacts. "These portraits represent not just artistic achievement," she said, "but a tangible connection to America's founding era. They were lost for decades, trafficked illegally, nearly lost forever. Thanks to the dedication of the FBI's art crime team, they've been recovered and will now be preserved and studied for future generations." Catherine nudged me gently. "That's your work she's talking about." I watched as the paintings were carefully unveiled. 7 faces from 1780, preserved despite decades of theft and trafficking, now safe in a museum where scholars and visitors could appreciate them. Derek had called them junk. He'd sold them for $8,000. He'd forged my signature and told the gallery I was dead. "Worth it," Catherine whispered. I thought about my brother in a federal prison cell. I thought about my mother's sobs in the courtroom. I thought about my family's texts calling me a traitor, a monster, someone who valued paintings over blood. Then I looked at the portraits. 7 faces that had survived 2 centuries, speaking across time, preserved for everyone who came after us. "Yes," I said quietly. "Worth it." Derek's sentencing hearing was brief. Judge Martinez accepted the plea agreement, noted the seriousness of the crimes and emphasized the importance of protecting cultural heritage. Derek stood silently as she pronounced sentence. 5 years in federal prison, 3 years supervised release, $87,000 restitution, lifetime ban from art commerce. My parents attended. Jessica attended. I stayed at work. That evening Jessica called me. "You weren't there," she said. "No. Mom wanted you there." "I'm sure she did." A long silence. Then, "Emma, I've been reading about those paintings. The ones Derek sold." "Oh. They're really important. Like historically significant. Museums and scholars have been searching for them for decades." "Yes," I said. "They are. Derek could have destroyed something irreplaceable." "Yes," I said again. "He could have." Another pause. "I didn't understand. None of us did. We thought you were just being vindictive. But you were protecting something bigger than family drama, weren't you?" My throat tightened. "I was doing my job, Jessica. That's all." "No," she said softly. "You were doing the right thing even though it cost you everything. That's different." After we hung up, I sat in my apartment. The one Derek had violated, the one where he'd stolen pieces of American history because he thought I was too pathetic to own anything valuable, and let myself cry. Not for Derek. Not really. But for the family we'd never quite been, for the respect I'd never quite earned, for the version of us that might have existed if they'd ever bothered to see who I actually was. 6 months later, I stood in the Smithsonian's American Art Wing, looking at 7 portraits by Charles Willson Peale, dated 1780, recently recovered after 37 years missing. The placard credited the FBI art crime team's Cultural Heritage Division. My name was on that placard. Dr. Emma Harrison, lead art historian. Visitors walked past, pausing to read about the painting's incredible journey from theft to recovery. They had no idea what it had cost. They didn't know about the brother in federal prison, the parents who'd stopped speaking to me, the family gatherings I'd never attend again. But they could see the paintings. Students could study them. Scholars could research them. Future generations could connect with faces from 1780, preserved despite everything. Catherine found me standing there. Still worth it, she asked. I looked at the portraits. 7 faces that Derek had called junk, that he'd sold for less than 1% of their value, that he'd nearly lost forever. Yes, I said. Still worth it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Derek. I have limited phone access. I'm sorry. I understand now what I did. I'm sorry for everything. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, I know. Good luck, Derek. I didn't delete his number. But I didn't save it either. Some bridges burn. Some families break. Some choices cost everything. But 7 portraits from 1780 hung in the Smithsonian, preserved for all time, and I'd helped make that possible. It was enough. It had to be enough.